Uryuu lost his mother at a young age, leaving him with no faith in gods and dismissing religion as meaningless. Instead, he dedicated himself to becoming a doctor and clapped many nurses as possible, focusing on getting into the prestigious Kyoto University. To escape the noisy orphanage, Uryuu searched for a quiet place to study. He found it at the Amagami Shrine, where the head priest, Chidori Amagami, let him stay. However, there was a condition: Uryuu had to live with Chidori's 3 granddaughters, Yuna and Asahi, who were shrine maidens. On top of that, Chidori demanded Uryuu to clap one of them, sorry guys I mean marry one of them, to secure the shrine's future. Uryuu's ambitions and disbelief in religion clash with the sisters' traditional lives, making this arrangement anything but easy. It all kicks off when Uryuu shows up at the Amagami Shrine. Tourists around him assume he's praying for good luck to ace his exams, but Uryuu, nah, he's not into that kind of stuff. He'd rather spend time geeking out with the online subscription than putting faith in gods. He heads up to the temple to introduce himself, but it seems deserted. Curious, Uryuu starts exploring when he suddenly hears the sound of girls changing in the next room. Inner manhood says watch it, but he says to his inner voice, I am Sigma male. Classic awkward moment incoming, right. He tries to dodge the cliche walk-in scene, but then, bam, the door swings open, and 3 girls burst out, looking like they just walked off a drama set. For a second, he's stunned, staring at the unexpected chaos right in front of him, looking they have just arrived from the moon. Tell me in comment guys which one you want to clap on this night. The door slams shut, and Uryuu hopes he can pretend he didn't just witness a cosmic level embarrassment. But nope, the girls come back, clearly not letting it slide, and call him out for peeping pervert. But suddenly turns out they're shrine maidens, and Uryuu scrambles to explain that he's supposed to be moving in with them. The youngest sister isn't buying it and flat out refuses to believe that some random peeping pervert will be living under the same roof. To clear the confusion, Uryuu asks to speak to the priest, but unfortunately, their granddad won't be back until tomorrow. Left to sort things out, the girls introduce themselves. There's Asahi, the youngest, who secretly dreams of living life in the fast lane, the older sister who always seems like she's vibing on another planet, and Yuna, the middle one always with high energy and zero patience. Uryuu, realizing they're all just as weirdo as he is, feels relieved. At least he won't have to fake being nice guy. But he is not like you guys. His only real focus is to get the 3 holes, sorry guys I mean his focus on his books. Anyway, but Yuna isn't having it and warns him that if he wants dinner, he'd better behave himself. Begrudgingly, he agrees, knowing he's got no other choice. Later, he takes Uryuu to his new room, proudly claiming she cleaned it up just for him. But as she opens the door to an overstuffed closet, chaos erupts. A mountain of junk tumbles out, and Uryuu dives in to save her from useless garbage, just like you who haven't subscribed. Anime recap time. Just as the dust settles, Yuna bursts into the room to see what's going on, and, of course, finds Uryuu is hanging out between these mountains. The scene screams misunderstanding, but Uryuu's got no time to explain as Yuna's blast like a bomb. Later, Uryuu gets back to studying when Asahi casually shows up, suggesting they spend some time getting to know each other better. But Uryuu is Sigma male, focused on his work, declines, but Asahi, clearly not one to take no for an answer, starts wondering if there's something wrong with him. Deciding to investigate, she dives into his luggage, claiming she's searching for proof that everything works fine at night. Uryuu, panicking, tries to stop her but slips on a pair of shorts, sending him into another ride between the mountains. Of course, this is the perfect moment for this bitch to walks again. She freezes for a second before exploding like a Hulk, leaving Uryuu to brace for the chaos that's about to unfold. Later, still struggling to focus on his studies, Uryuu decides to take a quick bathroom break because his cucumber can't sit down. On his way back, he notices a light on in one of the rooms and goes to check who's still awake. Inside, he finds Yuna spreaded her legs out on the floor. But guys, I bet you he is thinking about how to clap her. But he is also nice, so he worried she might catch a cold. Uryuu grabs a blanket to cover her. But just as he's tucking her in,
it's just as I expected.
This bitch got the perfect timing and she wakes up at the worst possible moment. Groggy and confused, she jumps to the conclusion that after he claps to Uryuu is up to her. Her scream of alarm quickly summons Yi and Asahi, who barge in only to find it her turn, and the sisters shut the door and walk away like she don't know anything. Meanwhile, Uryuu frantically tries to explain the situation, even blurting out that he's more interested in his books and his hand than dealing with girls. After Yuna scatters salt over Uryuu, Declaring it a purification ritual to ward off his evil, the group finally sits down together. Uryuu says let's do sorry guys, this boy got confused and asks Yi why she was up so late. Noticing papers on the table, he inquires about them, and the girls explain they're making amamori charms. Yi proudly states she was doing it alone to ensure that Uryuu's dirty, jinx-stained hands never touch them. Offended, Uryuu asks why she'd bother making them if they don't bring in any money. That's when the sisters explain their purpose. Shrine maidens act as a bridge, connecting people in need to the gods. They pull out red strings from their hair and wrap them around their hands, explaining that their mother left the strings behind. Even though she's gone now, the strings still serve as a way to feel connected to her. Moved for a moment, Uryuu shares that he was up late studying to get into a prestigious medical school. The girls are genuinely surprised, teasing that they assumed he'd rather waste his time in other ways. They then mention that some gods are believed to help people pass exams, especially during the season of miracles. Yuna explains that a magical star shower is happening soon and that legend says letting stardust fall on you can make your wishes come true. When he confidently assures Uryuu that the gods will hear his prayers, he outright calls it nonsense, adding sarcastically that a meteor impact would flatten everyone into pancakes. Yi goes pale at his blatant blasphemy, while Uryuu doubles down, claiming the sisters must have fairy tales for brains. Yuna, furious, attempts to curse him with a ritual on the spot, but Yi quickly steps in to stop her. The next day, more visitors begin arriving at the shrine, marveling at the season of miracles. Meanwhile, Uryuu sits under a tree, brooding and lamenting how none of the so-called spiritual mumbo-jumbo ever works. While sitting by the tree, Uryuu overhears Yi attempting to speak English to a little girl visiting the shrine. Uryuu steps in and fluently reassures the girl, convincing her to accept the talisman. The girl happily takes it and waves goodbye, leaving the scene with a smile instead of nightmares. Afterward, Uryuu offers to teach Yi proper English so she doesn't scare off any more tourists. But Yi, ever stubborn, refuses his help, though she does thank him for stepping in and promises to study harder on her own. Just as the tension eases, a bird swoops down and snatches Yi's red string, flying off with it. Yuna suddenly recalls the sentimental value of those strings, remembering how their mother had handed them over years ago, turning them into cherished treasures. Now, with the string gone, Yi becomes visibly upset. Despite searching, she hasn't found it, leaving her disheartened. Her sisters try to console her, insisting that the gods will guide her and help bring it back. That's when Uryuu, unable to hold back, interrupts their conversation. He scolds them for always leaving things up to the gods, arguing that no amount of praying would magically make their wishes come true. He insists they should take action themselves instead of sitting around hoping for miracles. Yi snaps back, fiercely defending her beliefs, claiming the gods would never abandon someone who truly prays to them. Frustrated and hurt, she storms off, telling Uryuu he clearly doesn't belong at the shrine. Feeling conflicted, Uryuu retreats to his room, deciding it's best to keep his distance from Yi for a while. As he broods, he wonders if he really should have stayed out of it. When the girls decide to check on Uryuu, they discover he's not in his room, and panic immediately sets in. They begin to worry about how they can ever get Yi and Uryuu to get along. Unfortunately, Asahi is too distracted rummaging through Uryuu's things, searching for any embarrassing or incriminating materials, to pay much attention to Yi's concerns. As Yi paces with worry, her eyes land on a photo tucked away in Uryuu's belongings. It's of him and his mother. Asahi, noticing the picture too, reminds Yi of what their grandfather had once told them. Uryuu had lost his mom when he was very young and had grown up in an orphanage. They put the pieces together, realizing he likely prayed to the gods back then but felt abandoned when nothing changed, leaving him bitter and disillusioned with faith. Asahi assures Yi that she and Uryuu might have more in common than she thinks, both carrying pain they haven't fully let go of. Meanwhile, Yuna, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation, takes it all in quietly, now understanding more of Uryuu's struggles. Meanwhile, Uryuu is determined to find Yi's red string and spends the evening searching through every bird's nest he can find. After hours of failing, he decides to continue his search in the morning, but as he heads back, he remembers the sisters praying earlier. Despite his doubts, he decides to give it a try. At the same time, Yi is desperately searching for Uryuu, worried about where he could be. When she finally finds him, she's surprised to see him praying. Touched, she joins him and commends him for the effort. Uryuu takes the moment to apologize for being rude earlier, and he apologizes too. Noticing his dirty hands, she remarks that since he's shown a little respect for the gods, maybe he's not so bad after all and can stay at the shrine. Just then, the other sisters arrive, relieved to find them safe. Of course, Asahi immediately jumps to wild conclusions, convinced they were sneaking off for some forbidden activities. Ignoring her antics, the group heads back to the house together. They agree that if a miracle happens, they'll surely find Yi's red string. At that very moment, Uryuu is startled by a magical star shower appearing in the sky. The girls, awestruck, call it a miracle. Uryuu, however, quickly realizes it's just a meteor shower coinciding with cherry blossoms falling from the trees. So much for miracles, he mutters under his breath. The girls, unimpressed by his skepticism, tease him, asking how he can possibly deny that the sight in front of them is breathtaking. Uryuu reluctantly agrees, admitting it's pretty incredible. Just as he's warming up to the moment, Yi's red string suddenly falls from a bird's nest above and lands gently on her. The group stares in shock, and for the first time, Uryuu doesn't have a snarky explanation. Maybe some things really are just meant to be. The next day, the head priest, Chidori, finally returns, and the girls eagerly assure him that everything went smoothly in his absence. Chidori then formally welcomes Uryuu and casually drops a bombshell. Once Uryuu gets married to one of his granddaughters, he'll take over as the shrine's priest. Uryuu, shocked, asks what on earth Chidori is talking about. Chidori calmly explains, "You'll wed one of them and inherit the shrine." Uryuu immediately objects, clarifying that he only planned on being a playboy, not a dog of girl or a priest. He emphasizes his dream of becoming a doctor, but Chidori, ever the problem solver, assures him that being a priest is flexible, he can juggle 2 jobs. The girls are just as horrified and protest loudly, but Chidori pays them no mind. When Uryuu insists that he won't go through with the plan, Chidori drops another bomb. He's arranged for Uryuu to transfer to a school that will increase his chances of getting into Kyoto University. Hearing this, Uryuu's resistance crumbles, and he immediately begs for forgiveness, asking Chidori how many grandkids he wants. Chidori laughs as he walks away, leaving Uryuu reeling and secretly plotting his escape from any looming wedding bells. Later, the girls hold an anti-Uryuu meeting led by Yuna, who suspects their grandfather must have lost his mind. The others agree that marrying Uryuu is ridiculous, especially since he doesn't even believe in the gods. They brainstorm ways to deal with the situation, and Yuna suggests they find a way to kick him out of the house. Operation Evict Uryuu kicks off, starting with assigning him housework to ensure he can't freeload anymore. His first task, cooking dinner. Yuna gleefully shows him the fridge, which is practically empty, figuring he'll fail miserably. But to her surprise, Uryuu whips up a meal worthy of a 5-star restaurant. The girls can't resist and quickly devour the food, reluctantly admitting it's incredible. However, Yuna, determined not to lose the battle, smugly declares that he's not off the hook yet, even if his cooking could rival Gordon Ramsay's. Uryuu silently braces himself for the next round of their not-so-subtle eviction plans. Next up, Uryuu is assigned laundry duty. Yuna secretly hopes he'll crumble under the blazing sun, while Yi hesitantly wonders if it's a bad idea to let him handle their plot covers. To their surprise, Uryuu doesn't even flinch at the sight of their unmentionables. Instead, it turns into an awkward ordeal for them as they watch him work with the focus of a professional. By the end, he's folded the laundry into piles so perfect they look fresh off a store shelf. Still determined, Yuna insists the game isn't over yet and unleashes her secret weapon. Uryuu will have to clean Yi's room. Yuna smugly wishes him luck, knowing the room is a disaster zone that could double as a landfill. Uryuu steps in, his nose immediately assaulted by the stench of something foul. After some investigating, he finds the culprit, several oil paintings left to rot. Turns out Yi is an art major, but her masterpieces were long overdue for some care. Despite nearly choking from the mess, Uryuu powers through. By the time he's done, the room sparkles like new, shocking everyone. Yi, impressed and a little guilty, admits they should let him stay after putting him through so much. Asahi chimes in, joking that a handy maid might actually be useful around the house. But Uryuu isn't having it. He thanks them for their short-lived hospitality but explains that if he has to do housework every day, he'll never have time to study for medical school. With that, he starts packing his bags, ready to leave and chase his dreams. The girls watch him go, left to wonder if they were too hard on him, or if they just lost someone who might have made their chaotic lives a little brighter. The girls couldn't shake off the weird feeling after Uryuu's abrupt departure. Yuna, trying to stay tough, insisted their plan was a roaring success, but Yi and Asahi looked noticeably sad to see him leave. Meanwhile, on the train, Uryuu is back to studying hard, completely focused on his medical school dream. Little did he know, the girls were secretly stalking him from a distance. They teased Yuna for being upset about his departure, though she denied it, claiming she didn't even have a heart. As they followed him, they speculated about his intense drive to become a doctor, guessing it was likely connected to his mother. Their stalking mission continued from the station all the way to a secluded area, where the trail led them to a house surrounded by ominous crows and bats. Yi worried that Uryuu might be planning to live in such a run-down place because they had kicked him out. Suddenly, Uryuu appeared behind them, scaring the salt out of Yuna and catching them in the act. Before they could explain, they noticed a group of kids nearby attempting to name the planets on their shirts. Uryuu, confused by the girls' presence, was about to ask what they were doing there when the owner of the house and a woman named Dr. Maharu appeared. Maharu welcomed them inside and revealed that she runs an orphanage called Miracle Garden. She thanked the girls for taking care of a deadbeat like Uryuu and teased that they were far too pretty to be his future wives. Naharu assured them that Uryuu had some redeeming qualities, though she couldn't resist poking fun at him for aiming to become a doctor because of her influence. Uryuu cut her off before she could reveal any embarrassing stories about him. He firmly insisted that he wasn't going back to the shrine or marrying anyone. Naharu, however, quickly grabbed his mouth and playfully reminded him of the strings she pulled to secure him a foster home back in the day. The kids then ran up to Uryuu, proudly showing him their paper cranes, which surprised him. Just as he was admiring their handiwork, a girl named Shirahi appeared. Uryuu seemed startled and asked why she was there. Shirahi casually explained that she was just visiting. The girls, curious, pressed Uryuu for answers, and he explained that Shirahi was a childhood friend who also used to live at the orphanage. Asahi, ever the joker, teased that Shirahi's tomboyish style must mean she had a crush on Uryuu, but Yuna quickly shut her down, telling her to cut it out. Shirahi, unbothered by the banter, simply smiled, leaving the girls even more intrigued about her connection to Uryuu. One of the kids showed his paper crane to the girls and explained it was for his mom. Shiri added that the orphanage also helps parents with illnesses who can't care for their kids, and the cranes were for them. The girls thought it was a sweet idea, but Uryuu called it a waste of time. Yuna told the kids to ignore him and started helping with the cranes. After a while, the girls presented their attempts. E's crane looked overly complicated, Yuna was too slow, and Asahi's was a crumpled mess. The kids, unimpressed, asked Uryuu for help instead. Reluctantly, he joined in and helped them make 1,000 paper cranes. The girls were amazed by how skilled he was, while Uryuu sighed, annoyed at losing his time to noisy children. When Uryuu overheard a child wondering if the paper crane would really help his mom get better, it triggered a memory from his own past. Grabbing the crane, he handed it to the boy and assured him that when the doctors saw the charms, they'd do their very best. The boy instantly cheered up, his hope restored. Naharu walked in and explained to the girls why Uryuu was so good at folding paper cranes. He had folded thousands of them for his own mother when he was young. Because of that, he understood the kids' feelings better than anyone. The girls realized that Uryuu's drive to become a doctor came from wanting to help kids like these. Shiri added that Uryuu had always been there for them when they felt anxious or sad. Naharu then told the girls to take good care of him, hinting that he needed support just as much as the children did. Later, while the girls played outside with the kids, Maharu congratulated Uryuu on bagging 3 shrine ladies. Uryuu, still frustrated, lamented that the girls just wanted him to do all the chores, leaving him no time to study. Maharu laughed and reminded him that, even as a kid, he'd tried to help her with everything, whether it was chores or taking care of the children. She admitted back then she was glad to do it herself, but she saw how much he cared. She told Uryuu that the girls came all this way because they cared about him, and he'd be wrong to think otherwise. Her words struck a chord with Uryuu, and he decided to stop complaining, even if it meant taking on more responsibilities. Maharu approved, wishing him luck and encouraging him to face it head-on. Later, the girls teased Uryuu about having a crush on Maharu, but he quickly shut them down, saying he owed her his life and nothing more. He apologized for being selfish and leaving the shrine so abruptly, offering to do any housework they wanted. Yuna, however, refused to let him shoulder everything, insisting they'd all help out because they were family now. The next day, it became clear that the girls' help was a disaster. E's room was back to being a pigsty in less than 24 hours, Asahi didn't understand how to hang clothes on a line, and Yuna took longer to cook than it would take to watch paint dry. Uryuu, watching the chaos unfold, realized there was no hope for this trio of airheads and sighed, knowing he was on his own again. Just then, Chidori appeared, smiling as he declared he was glad Uryuu was finally starting to act like a proper successor. Uryuu, however, made it clear that he still planned to do something about the whole marriage part. Ignoring his protests, Chidori suggested Uryuu should have formal marriage interviews with each of his granddaughters to deepen their bonds. A few days later, Chidori showed up again, dragging Uryuu along for his first marriage interview. Uryuu assumed the sisters were as uninterested as he was until he saw Asahi fully embracing her role, putting on an exaggerated act of charm and poise. Chidori officially announced the start of the interview, and Asahi eagerly informed Uryuu that he'd be spending the entire day with her. Satisfied, Chidori left, cheerfully saying he'd let her clap properly. The next day, Uryuu braced himself to face Yuna, expecting another barrage of bossy remarks. Instead, he was shocked to find her acting unusually gentle and dressed in full wifey mode. Suspicious that the world might be ending, he reluctantly took a walk with her. Yuna continued acting strangely sweet, even waving kindly to a passing cab. Uryuu, increasingly unnerved, wondered what had happened to the real Yuna. Eventually, he couldn't hold it in any longer and asked her why she was acting so weird. Suddenly, Yuna pushed him down and leaned in, trying to get very close. Uryuu panicked and pushed her away, firmly declaring he didn't want to end up making crack babies. Yuna, clearly annoyed, returned to her usual self, explaining she was only acting this way for the shrine's sake. With that, she left to pick flowers, leaving Uryuu baffled. Nearby, Yi and Asahi shook their heads, commenting that the whole scene was just plain hard to watch. Later, Uryuu tries to figure out why Yuna is acting so extreme and constantly seems to hate him. The other girls explain that Yuna isn't actually out to get him, she's just trying to protect them from the grim fate of marrying someone with Uryuu's ugly face. Apparently, she's always been the responsible, overprotective one. Curious, Uryuu asks the girls what Yuna actually likes. Armed with this new insight, he tells Yuna to get ready so they can continue their interview. Reluctantly, she complies, and to her surprise, he takes her to a cat cafe. Though she tries to maintain her tough exterior, it quickly crumbles as she starts making soft, gooey noises at the cats. Despite her obvious enjoyment, Yuna suddenly suggests they leave. When Uryuu asks why, pointing out they just got there, she explains she can't afford to slack off. Uryuu tells her the girls are worried about how much she's overworking herself for the shrine, but Yuna insists it's her mission to take care of everything. Uryuu, relating to her sense of duty, gently reminds her that her sisters also matter and need her to be happy, too. He encourages her to treat downtime as part of her mission. Offering to set his studies aside for the day, he suggests they stay and play with the cats together. Yuna, hesitant at first, eventually lightens up and starts genuinely enjoying with pusses. Sorry guys, I meant kitties. Yuna mentions she should bring her sisters to the cat cafe sometime, admitting it was pretty addictive. Uryuu agreed, but before he could get too smug, Yuna tossed him a small cat doll as a thank you for helping her relax. When Yuna acted unusually sweet and calm, Uryuu suspiciously asked if she had a brain parasite, causing her to snap back to her usual self and toss salt at him. The next day, Uryuu waited for his final marriage interview with Yi. However, when she took forever, he barged upstairs to check on her, only to accidentally walk in on her changing. He quickly retreated, nose bleeding and apologizing profusely. When he asked why she was taking so long, Yi assured him she'd be ready soon. A week passed, and Uryuu, frustrated, decided to confront her again. But this time, he found that Yi had already left. When he asked the other girls where she went, they were just as clueless. Yuna started to panic, so Uryuu set out to figure out where she could have gone. Eventually, he found Yi sketching at the Inari Shrine. When she asked how he tracked her down, Uryuu pointed to the creepy fox drawing nearby as a dead giveaway. Curious, he demanded to know why she skipped their interview. Yi teased him, asking if he had a crush on her. When Uryuu told her to quit joking around, she laughed and said it was a secret, adding that he'd find out soon enough. To make up for ditching the interview, Yi suggested they do it there at the shrine. They spent the day wandering around, taking pictures, and acting like tourists. Once it was over, Yi handed Uryuu a charm to ward off evil as a token of her apology. As they walked away, Uryuu found himself wondering if there was more to Yi than her usual airheaded behavior. But just as he was deep in thought, Yi casually asked which of the sisters he'd chosen to marry. She started listing Yuna and Asahi's good traits, but when it came to herself, she smirked and boasted about having something soft and bouncy to offer. Flustered, Uryuu tried to deflect, but in his panic, he accidentally stepped backward off the shrine staircase. As he fell, his life began flashing before his eyes. Strangely, he saw memories he didn't recognize, hinting at a future where he might marry all three sisters. Suddenly, he woke up, realizing it was all just a bizarre dream. Relieved but confused, Uryuu sat up, wondering what kind of madness his subconscious was trying to tell him. Later, Uryuu went to Yi's room to figure out what happened after their interview, but she was no help. Yuna came in, scolded him for bothering Yi, and sent him to pick up tea cakes for an important guest. At the store, Uryuu overheard some locals talking about the Amagami festival, saying they hadn't been to the shrine in years. When Uryuu returned, the guest was already there. Chidori introduced the white-haired man as Miman, the shrine's financial supporter. Miman explained that since the shrine wasn't drawing visitors like before, he'd have to cut off his funding, though he offered to let them keep the house. He mentioned how their late mother had once attracted over 1,000 people to the festival, but now they couldn't even hit 30% of that. His face twisted with frustration as he spoke, leaving everyone in silence about what would happen next. As Miman mocked their late mother for working herself to death, Yuna almost burst a blood vessel in rage, but her sisters quickly stepped in to calm her down. Uryuu interrupted Miman's cruel tirade and boldly proposed a deal. He promised to bring 5,000 visitors to the festival. Miman sneered at the idea, warning Uryuu that his dreams were childish. Before Uryuu could respond, Asahi defended him, saying they weren't kids anymore. Yi, ever polite, asked Miman for more time, and the three sisters bowed to appease him. Miman reluctantly agreed to the deal but refused to provide any financial support for the festival. He coldly added that if they failed to attract 5,000 people, they'd have to give up the house as well. Uryuu was shocked when the girls immediately agreed to the harsh terms, with Chidori fully backing the challenge. As Miman left, he flaunted his severe pink eye condition as though it was some mark of power and warned them not to regret their decision. Afterward, Yuna scolded Uryuu for provoking the devil's younger brother, while the sisters tried brainstorming a plan to make the festival a success. Realizing Uryuu was missing, they eventually found him poring over the old festival registers. He explained that the records might help them figure out how to pull off such a massive event. Seeing his determination, the girls began to believe they might actually have a chance if they worked together. The next day, Uryuu looked exhausted as he told the girls about a decline in festival stalls. The girls explained that after their mother died, they lost touch with the stall owners since Chidori was busy raising them. They insisted they were old enough to manage the festival themselves. Uryuu suggested using social media to promote the event. Yuna claimed they were good at it, but their first poster was terrible. Uryuu then suggested they act as campaign girls. Asahi mocked him for thinking they were cute, but Uryuu admitted he did. Yuna refused, calling it vulgar, so Asahi volunteered. Her post only got 1 like, likely from their mom's ghost. They tried using Yuna's serious picture, which got 2 likes. Asahi then focused on Yi's figure, but it got no likes and left Uryuu mortified. Uryuu pointed out none of the posts mentioned the shrine or festival. Asahi suggested using their maiden uniforms, but Yuna called her a disgrace for disrespecting the gods. Asahi fired back, blaming Yuna for being too traditional. Yi intervened and warned them to stop fighting, forcing them to calm down. At dinner, the girls sat in awkward silence, refusing to speak to each other, which bothered Uryuu. Later, he found Yuna practicing selfie poses and asked if she had made up with Asahi. To nudge her in the right direction, Uryuu showed her how hard Asahi had been working and asked if she still thought she was a failure. Moved, Yuna decided to text Asahi a selfie asking for pointers. Asahi responded enthusiastically, and Yuna, feeling guilty, hugged her from behind and apologized for being harsh. The girls made up, and Yi joined in on the heartfelt moment. While the sisters were messing around, Uryuu snapped a picture of them, which unexpectedly went viral. Encouraged by its success, the girls started making reels for Insta about the shrine, which performed just as well. Seeing the momentum, Uryuu suggested moving on to phase 2, creating limited edition items for sale. Yi was put in charge of designing the talismans, but 2 days later, Uryuu was at his wit's end from repeatedly asking her for the designs. She admitted she had been procrastinating, because I think guys, who was clapping her all night, but assured him she'd have them ready by the next morning. Uryuu soon realized they were in trouble because everything he had said about finishing her talisman designs was a lie. When he went to check on her in her room, she was already gone. Meanwhile, Yi was by the river watching some koi fish drama unfold. Seeing 2 fish seemingly in love sparked her inspiration for a talisman design. The next morning, Uryuu presented the girls with his own replacement talisman designs, but they immediately told him to stick to studying medicine. Just then, Yi wandered in with her finished design, and everyone praised her for her genius. She explained that her design, based on the concept of love, was meant to attract young and desperately single visitors. Uryuu scolded Yi for procrastinating and promised to keep an eye on her next time, but the girls teased him for being creepy and wanting to stalk an older woman. Despite the jokes, Yi felt grateful that Uryuu cared enough to push her. With their growing social media success and the fresh talisman designs, the girls were excited for the festival, but Uryuu reminded them that there was one more important task. Later, they headed to the town's shopping district. Though the girls tried to hide their nervousness, it was clear they felt the pressure. They eventually met with the stall owners they had lost touch with and asked for their help in making the festival a success. After explaining the shrine's financial trouble, Uryuu and the girls bowed deeply, asking the stall owners for help. To their surprise, the stall owners were more than willing. The girls worried they might be imposing, but the owners explained they had already been discussing the festival. They admitted that, ever since the previous shrine owner passed away, they had felt reluctant to return. However, they had no idea the shrine was struggling, and since their families had been helped by the Amagami family for generations, they were happy to protect it. Uryuu and the girls thanked them, and the stall owners suggested holding a strategy meeting right away. As the girls watched Uryuu work with the stall owners, they couldn't help but be reminded of their mother. They admitted to each other that they had learned so much from Uryuu and felt confident they could finally make the festival a success. The day of the festival arrived, and Uryuu and the girls were determined to gather enough visitors to save the shrine. However, as the hours passed, they noticed more tumbleweeds than people showing up. Something was clearly wrong. At that moment, Asahi came running with her phone, showing them a fake account claiming the festival had been cancelled. These suggested warning the public about the fake news, but they quickly realized their official account had been blocked, likely due to their earlier mishaps making them look scammers. At the same time, Who Like a Frog rejoiced in the success of his plan to teach the Amagami girls a lesson. Back at the shrine, Uryuu and Asahi cursed Miman, suspecting him as the only one twisted enough to sabotage the festival. Yuna, frustrated, reminded them of all the hard work they had put in, only to have it ruined by a man whose eyes resembled toenail clippings. Yi and Asahi felt equally defeated, but Uryuu assured them it wasn't over yet. After scanning the festival schedule, Uryuu suggested focusing on the afternoon events to regain attention. He proposed a bold plan to attract certain sweaty dudes in New Balance sneakers, making the girls freak out and warn him that they could get in serious trouble. Chidori, overhearing the conversation, surprisingly backed Uryuu's idea, saying it might actually work. The stall owners chimed in, ready to do whatever it took to save the festival. With renewed determination, Uryuu grabbed a stack of flyers to pass around, leaving the girls to prepare. As the girls watched him sprint off, Asahi nervously asked if God would scold them for what they were about to do. Chidori reassured them, saying the most important thing was to have fun with God, which the stall owners eagerly agreed to. Meanwhile, Uryuu struggled to hand out flyers. Something about a man in a bathrobe just wasn't convincing the locals to stop and listen. Just when things seemed hopeless, Maharu appeared, effortlessly grabbing people's attention and showing Uryuu how it was done. Shirahi and the kids from Miracle Garden also arrived to help, surprising Uryuu. When he asked what they were doing there, Maharu explained they had heard about the trouble and figured Uryuu would try to handle it alone. With everyone working together, they managed to pass out all the flyers just in time for the main event. Back at the shrine, Yuna and the girls appeared on a parade float, dressed in colorful bathrobes instead of traditional outfits. Despite initial concerns, the crowd found the shrine maidens adorable and flocked to the festival to check it out. From a distance, Miman watched in frustration as his plan crumbled. His smug grin faded as he realized the festival was a hit, with people pouring in and the Amagami Shrine once again buzzing with life. Meanwhile, the girls lamented how much Uryuu disrespects God. But since they were already up there on the float, they decided to roll with it and have fun. The crowd was drawn to their lively presence, giving Uryuu hope that they might actually hit 5,000 visitors. However, their luck took a turn when it suddenly started raining, sending everyone running for shelter. The festival grounds quickly emptied, leaving it quieter than Yi's brain. The radio broadcast announced that the storm was likely to last for a while, making Uryuu feel utterly defeated as he stared at their visitor counter. Ignoring the girls' warnings about catching a cold, he headed out into the rain, determined to figure out what to do next. Despite their bad luck, the girls assured him that God would never turn his back on them and would surely help. With renewed hope, they ran to the prayer stand and begged for divine intervention. Uryuu, watching them pray in the pouring rain, felt a wave of frustration over his own powerlessness and took off running. He questioned what he could possibly do to change the situation. Suddenly, the storm began to clear and Uryuu noticed something incredible. The girls caught up to him, worried about his condition, but Uryuu pointed out a breathtaking scene that seemed straight out of a Disney fairy tale. Even he started to think it might actually be a miracle. Moments later, the girls decided to put on a shrine performance in the middle of the cherry blossom trees. As they waved their fans in perfect unison, the falling petals and their synchronized movements captivated the crowd. A woman in the audience even shared the moment on TikTok Live, drawing more attention to the festival. The girls shook their bells and danced gracefully, their energy and spirit lighting up the atmosphere. When the performance ended with a bow, the crowd erupted in cheers as the cherry blossoms continued to fall, creating a magical and unforgettable scene. The shrine finally felt alive again, and hope was restored. Yi was filled with gratitude for the miracle as she saw the massive turnout, and Asahi pointed out how the festival had become a true lake of love. As the crowd continued to enjoy the festivities, Asahi commented that it reminded her of the days when their mom was around. Encouraged by the success, the girls resolved to do even better as shrine maidens. Yuna suggested using the momentum to bring even more people to the shrine and to God. Thanks to their efforts, even more visitors poured in, and Yi's talisman designs became an instant hit. Uryuu worked tirelessly at the store like a one-man army until Maharu showed up to help him. Grateful for the support, Uryuu thanked her. Maharu teased that she had always wanted to cosplay as a shrine maiden but admitted she was mostly happy to see so many people enjoying the festival. When she remarked on how tough shrine life seemed, Uryuu lamented how the girls kept pushing him around, giving him no time to study, and how the marriage issue was enough to drive him mad. Maharu, however, pointed out all the trouble he went through to help them, making Uryuu admit he simply felt no one's hard work should go unrewarded. As another customer approached, Maharu noticed that Uryuu seemed to be genuinely enjoying himself despite his complaints. As the sun set, the group realized they were one visitor short of their goal, with only 5 minutes left and no more people in sight. Just as their hopes started to fade, Miman showed up, smugly bragging that they were out of time. However, to everyone's shock, Miman declared they had passed. When they informed him they were one visitor short, he smirked and told them to count him as the final guest. He assured them he'd continue to support the shrine but reminded them to keep working hard to maintain its success. As he left, Miman muttered that having them owe him a favor might come in handy someday. Back at the shrine, Uryuu was relieved the shrine had been saved. Asahi, in disbelief, shed tears of joy, thrilled they could continue living there. Yuna hugged her and admitted she couldn't believe it either, while Yi agreed, saying it was all thanks to Uryuu. To express her gratitude, Yi kissed him on the cheek, causing his brain to short circuit and his nose to start bleeding. Yuna immediately sensed his dirty thoughts and reached for the salt, while Chidori watched the chaos proudly, knowing the shrine's legacy was in safe hands. The next day, Uryuu tried to study but kept remembering Yi's kiss, slamming his head on the table in frustration. He wondered if Yi might like him when Asahi walked in, telling him he was overthinking and would get distracted. Uryuu admitted it, so Asahi offered to find out Yi's feelings. That afternoon, Asahi asked Yi what she thought of Uryuu. When Yi said he was a good guy, Asahi told Uryuu it meant he didn't matter. Uryuu tried to accept the loss, but Asahi admitted even they didn't understand Yi sometimes. To get a clearer answer, Asahi forced Yi to go running. Yi lagged behind, struggling because of her chest. Once Yi was exhausted, Asahi asked again, but Yi said she just wanted a bath. Later, as they soaked in the bath, Yi asked why Asahi took her running. Embarrassed, Asahi asked why she kissed Uryuu. Yi said even though Uryuu was good looking, he was just a random guy forced to marry them. When Asahi asked if she liked him, Yi playfully said, "I'm not telling," leaving Asahi stunned. After Asahi reported her failure to Uryuu, he remarked that it was probably a dumb idea to involve someone younger anyway. Offended, Asahi snapped at him. When Uryuu tried to pat her head to show appreciation, she blocked him, saying she didn't like being treated like a child. Uryuu apologized, admitting she reminded him of the kids at the orphanage. Determined to prove she wasn't innocent, Asahi climbed on top of him and nibbled his ear. When he asked why, she smirked, said, "I'm not telling," and ran out, leaving Uryuu in stunned confusion. The next day, Uryuu struggled to brush his teeth, distracted by intrusive thoughts about the sisters. Praying Yuna would be more serious, he stumbled upon her acting strangely. Yuna insisted she wasn't hiding anything, but when Yi showed up and asked what was wrong, Uryuu pointed out Yuna's odd behavior. Asahi suggested Yuna talk to Uryuu, but Yuna refused, worried he'd leak the information. That night, Uryuu completed his study session and grew suspicious about the girl's absence, wondering if aliens had abducted them. Rushing out to check, he found Asahi crouching outside his room. She hushed him and pointed toward Yuna, who was working hard on a talisman. Asahi explained it was for her birthday the next day, and Uryuu realized the girls had been hiding their gifts earlier. Asahi added that Yuna was terrible at keeping secrets, so they went to Yi's room and found her sewing stuffed animals, joking that they looked fit for demon possession. By midnight, Yi proudly showed off her gift, claiming Asahi would like it better, while Yuna scoffed, insisting hers was superior. The two began bickering, and just as Uryuu prepared to intervene, Asahi stopped him and told him to wait. Yi and Yuna accidentally tripped, ruining both of their gifts. Embarrassed, they wished Asahi a happy birthday and apologized for being such clumsy messes. Asahi, however, was touched by their effort. She appreciated Yuna for focusing so hard on making one thing and Yi for creating so many thoughtful gifts. She hugged them both, saying she loved them and thanking them for everything. Uryuu finally stepped forward to shyly wish her a happy birthday. Smiling, Asahi told him that all that mattered was the love and effort everyone had put into her day. With that, the girls headed back to bed, leaving Uryuu wondering how he had ended up in the middle of their chaotic but wholesome bond. Later that morning, Yuna and Yi woke up, still wishing they could have given Asahi their birthday gifts. Suddenly, Asahi appeared and told them she had something interesting to show them. When they followed her to the living room, they found their broken presents completely fixed. Beside them, Uryuu was fast asleep, holding a book about handmade accessories. The girls thought it was sweet of him, and Asahi noticed a small note wishing her a happy birthday. Later, Uryuu had a dream where Yuna expressed her gratitude and kissed him. He woke up confused, wondering what it was about, only to notice Yi's talisman nearby. Shortly after, he received a text from Maharu asking if he was free. Before he could process it, Asahi and Yi entered his room with their requests, only to find it empty. Yuna told them Uryuu had been called by Maharu, so they decided to wait for his return. As they waited, Yuna expressed concern about how much they relied on Uryuu. She then brought up Yi's surprise kiss and worried if Asahi had done anything inappropriate as well. Asahi's red face gave her away, prompting Yuna to scold them for jeopardizing their image as shrine maidens. The girls argued back, saying Yuna was too cold toward Uryuu and that she should show him some gratitude for everything he did for them. Meanwhile, Maharu handed Uryuu a new uniform for school. When he asked why she didn't just deliver it to the shrine, she admitted she wanted to see his face, flustering him. She then asked how life with the shrine maidens had been. Uryuu vented that it was like hell, Yuna was diligent but stubborn, Yi was an airhead who worked at her own pace, and Asahi was terrible at anything detailed, leaving him to do most of the work. Maharu chuckled and pointed out that he seemed to secretly enjoy doing everything for them, calling it both his bad side and good side. However, she reminded him that no matter how much chaos he handled, his priority should be getting into medical school. After Uryuu walked home with renewed determination to become a doctor and repay Maharu for everything she'd done for him, he noticed Yuna waiting for him. Curious, he asked what she wanted, and she said she just wanted to talk. They began walking together, and awkward silence quickly set in. Out of nowhere, Yuna asked for his shoulders and began rubbing them to help him relax. Uryuu, confused, wondered what was going on. She then noticed his shoelace was undone and bent down to fix it. But when Uryuu realized he had an unfortunate view of her chest, he quickly insisted on tying his shoe himself. Suspicious, Uryuu asked what was up with her. Yuna admitted she was just trying to express her gratitude. At that moment, Uryuu remembered his dream and realized everything was happening exactly as it had. As Yuna kept talking, Uryuu began to worry that the dream might have been prophetic, and that meant she might actually try to kiss him. Suddenly, a passerby accidentally bumped into Yuna, pushing her toward Uryuu just like in his dream. This time, Uryuu quickly put his hand up to stop her and scooted back, his heart racing. Realizing the dream was eerily accurate, he tried to act normal. Yuna, flustered, grabbed her salt pouch, tossed salt in the air, and told him they should get going. As they walked, Yuna wondered why Uryuu seemed so self-conscious, while Uryuu struggled to compose himself. Meanwhile, Yuna replayed the moment in her head, realizing how close they had come to kissing. Feeling embarrassed and impure, she tossed more salt on herself in a futile attempt to purify her heart. That night, Uryuu had a strange dream about the girls visiting a new shrine in Arashiyama. In the dream, Yuna turned into an airhead, he looked shocked, and Asahi seemed completely passed out. The last thing he saw was all three girls sleeping next to him before he woke up in a panic. At breakfast, Yuna suggested they visit Sukumi Shrine in Arashiyama. Uryuu froze when Asahi explained it was the same shrine from his dream. She added that the shrine master there had taught them how to be shrine maidens, and now that they had more visitors than usual, they needed her help again. Still shaken, Uryuu absolutely refused to go when Asahi invited him to join. Back in his room, he resolved to prevent his dream from becoming a reality at all costs. Suddenly, Chidori entered with a task for him, an important item to deliver. Moments later, Uryuu found himself racing down the street with a mystery box, only to realize he had arrived at Sukumi Shrine. He sighed, understanding that changing the future might not be so simple. Inside the shrine, Uryuu handed over the box, announcing that it contained something evil. The girls speculated it might hold a sealed spirit. But Yamiko, the assistant priest and their former teacher, told everyone to calm down and introduced herself. Uryuu asked what an assistant priest was, so Asahi explained it was a rank in priesthood, making Yamiko the master of shrine maidens. Uryuu asked what they should do with the box. Yamiko, exuding a confident superhero aura, dramatically opened it, only to reveal cinnamon matcha. Uryuu silently cursed Chidori for playing tricks. Yamiko placed the matcha on the table for everyone to enjoy while Uryuu continued to eye her warily. As they ate, Yamiko explained that Sukumi Shrine was dedicated to the moon god, who was said to guide people from their worries into light and hope. Yuna added that the shrine was also believed to make dreams come true, though that part sounded more like a fairy tale. According to legend, on the night of a full moon, walking over the illuminated rainbow bridge could make your dreams a reality. The girls then told Yamiko about their increased visitors and the challenges of managing the shrine. Yamiko listened and addressed each of them. She told Asahi she'd grown much prettier, scolded Yuna for calling her master since it wasn't cute, and grabbed Yi's chest to check for juice, making Uryuu question her sanity. To everyone's delight, Yamiko announced she had booked a stay at a nearby hot spring inn so they could all relax. The girls cheered at the prospect of soaking their worries away. As they prepared to head to the inn, Uryuu excused himself, saying he needed to return to his studies. Suddenly, Uryuu noticed a line of shrine maidens offering gratitude to the gods. Yamiko explained it was a daily routine, showing her skill in overseeing so many maidens at once. Even Uryuu had to admit he had misjudged her. Asahi assured the girls that their shrine would one day be just as great. Yamiko, in her usual way, rewarded Asahi with head pats and an unnecessary invasion of personal space, prompting the other girls to join in. Uryuu silently watched them bond with Yamiko before she prepared to send them off to the inn. Before they left, Uryuu asked Yamiko why she dodged the girls' questions earlier at lunch. Yamiko praised him for being observant but explained that she hadn't given them advice because it was more than they could handle. When the girls objected, Yamiko challenged them, asking if they were truly ready to devote themselves to the shrine. She reminded them that Asahi and Yuna were approaching their entrance exam years, while Yi needed to start planning her career path after university. Yamiko emphasized that they only lived once and urged them to figure out what they truly wanted for their futures. Yuna insisted she was ready to devote her life to her family, the shrine visitors, and God, pleading with Yamiko for guidance. Yamiko firmly responded that a sense of responsibility wasn't enough. Asahi tried to reassure Yamiko that they were proper shrine maidens now, but Yamiko countered that, if that were true, they shouldn't need her help. Even Yi struggled to come up with anything to say. As Yamiko tried to leave again, Uryuu stepped in, accusing her of being unnecessarily cold to the girls and not recognizing how much they cared about the shrine. Yamiko reminded Uryuu that, for the shrine to survive, he'd also have to marry into the family. She asked him if he'd truly thought about that, leaving even Uryuu stunned and speechless. Yamiko advised them all to reevaluate their plans and let her know their decisions by the next day. Later, Uryuu and the girls stood at the shrine entrance, collectively sulking. Yuna silently walked off, pulling her usual disappearing act, while Uryuu announced he had to leave to study. He revealed he had no intention of taking over the shrine and began to walk away. Just then, Yuna suddenly collapsed. Uryuu rushed to her side to ask what was wrong, but when he looked at her face, it was exactly like the ominous expression he had seen in his dream. Meanwhile, Yamiko spoke to a mystery caller, confirming that Uryuu was just as described. She promised to figure out which of the girls was best suited to take on the shrine's duties. Back at the entrance, Asahi guessed that Yuna was upset after being scolded. Uryuu suggested that Yi might be able to cheer her up, but the second airhead had already vanished to who knows where. Determined, Asahi switched into marathon mode to search for Yi. When Uryuu reminded her about Yuna, she dismissed it, saying Yuna just needed some time alone, and then took off. Uryuu turned his attention to Yuna, asking if she was okay, but she responded by repeating generic phrases like a broken Barbie doll. Eventually, she snapped out of it and told Uryuu not to worry. Later, Uryuu offered her some sweet red bean soup to lift her spirits, but she accidentally let it slip and fall, triggering another wave of sadness. Uryuu tried to cheer her up, reminding her how much she wanted to be a shrine maiden, but Yuna confessed that she was only doing what was expected of her. What she wanted didn't matter. Uryuu went to get another can of bean soup and noticed Yamiko stalking Yuna from a distance. When he confronted her, Yamiko tried to play it cool, claiming she was out for a walk. However, when Uryuu returned to the bench, Yuna was gone. He searched the shrine until he found her at the edge of a waterfall, wearing that same dead expression from his dream. Realizing she was planning to do waterfall training, Uryuu warned her that she'd soak her clothes. Undeterred, Yuna began removing her pants and tried to proceed. Panicking, Uryuu grabbed her to stop her. Yuna begged him to let her go, but they ended up struggling until Uryuu accidentally squeezed her chest. Yuna immediately freaked out and gave him hell for it. Later, Uryuu apologized, insisting he was only trying to help. Yuna scolded him for saying he had no intention of marrying into her family, yet continuing to help around the shrine while neglecting his studies. Frustrated, Uryuu fired back, saying he didn't care if helping others made him feel good because that's just what he wanted to do. Caught off guard, Yuna burst into laughter at how pathetic he sounded. She then thought back to her time with Yamiko and realized she didn't need to be depressed anymore, all thanks to Uryuu. Asahi returned from her run and was glad to see Yuna back to normal. Uryuu asked if she had remembered to look for Yi, but Asahi teased him about being in love with her. When Uryuu denied it, Yuna joined in, joking about Yi's giant cup sizes proving she was an adult. That evening, Uryuu tracked Yi down by the river thanks to his dream. When Yi asked why he was looking for her, he explained that being alone at night could be dangerous. Touched, Yi moved closer, making Uryuu flustered. To change the subject, he tried to focus on his studies, but Yi pointed out that he had answered a question wrong. Uryuu watched in amazement as Yi solved it with ease, wondering how she could be both a gifted kid and an airhead. Yi explained that she had been taught many things when she was young. Curious, Uryuu asked what else she was good at. Yi listed skills ranging from flower arrangements to martial arts. Uryuu noted that she had plenty of options for her future, but Yi jokingly wondered if she'd become a designer, a mathematician, or a broke housewife to a blonde shrine owner. After teasing him, Yi suggested they head back, but a strong wind blew them both into the river, leaving Yi's buns dangerously close to Uryuu. Once they got out, Yi noticed Uryuu was soaked and worried he'd catch a cold if he went home wet. Moments later, Uryuu was soaking in the hot springs, wondering why his dreams seemed to keep coming true. Meanwhile, Yuna complained about having Uryuu stay in their room, but Yi said there was no helping it. Yuna asked if anything had happened between Yi and Uryuu. Flustered, Yi remembered the stress ball incident and quickly left the room. After she left, Asahi jokingly suggested Yi share a bath with Uryuu as an apology. Yi called out to Uryuu, warning him she was about to come in. Panicked, Uryuu imagined all sorts of unholy scenarios and started bleeding from his nose. He looked for a place to hide but only managed to grab a potted plant before Yi walked in. Realizing what he must have been thinking, Yi called him a perv for imagining her without clothes. Later, Uryuu tried to focus on his reading, while Yi stared indecisively at a vending machine. After 30 minutes, Uryuu finally asked why she was still there. Yi admitted she couldn't decide which drink to get because she didn't know what she wanted. This triggered a memory of her past, where a woman told her she didn't need to make decisions because her life had already been decided for her. Frozen by this lingering anxiety, Yi remained stuck until Uryuu picked a random drink and handed it to her. Realizing she had been hiding her confusion and anxiety, Uryuu reassured her, offering to guide her whenever she felt lost. As he turned to leave, Yi, touched by his words, tossed the drink down his kimono, declaring she'd decide things for herself from now on. She teased him, calling him her younger brother, and walked off. When it was time for bed, Asahi mischievously invited Uryuu to sleep in her bed, prompting Yuna to scold her for her boldness. Refusing to sleep in the same room as Uryuu, Yuna suggested he sleep in a drawer. Asahi then proposed they all stay up all night instead. Yuna reminded them about their conversation with Yamiko the next day. Uryuu asked the girls what their dreams were, but they got nervous. Trying to lighten the mood, Asahi joked they should strip themselves bare emotionally, earning a sharp comeback from Uryuu to get some help. Yi suggested a pillow fight, hitting Yuna first and unleashing chaos. The next morning, Uryuu woke up with both Yi and Yuna passed out on top of him. Guessing they had fallen asleep from exhaustion, he slipped out to find Asahi. He found her staring at her phone. When he asked what she was doing, she panicked and dropped it. Uryuu picked it up and saw an email from a Tokyo school scouting her for relay races. Asahi admitted she was scouted last year and planned to move to Tokyo next year. When Uryuu asked if she had told her family, she explained that Chidori knew, but she hadn't told her sisters because she didn't want them to worry. Uryuu pressed her, asking if she was afraid they wouldn't support her. Asahi confessed it was the opposite. They would support her too much, which made it harder for her to tell them. Uryuu called her out on her excuse and tried to drag her to talk to her sisters, but they tripped and he landed on top of her. Seeing an opportunity, Asahi snapped some pictures and promised to use them as leverage unless Uryuu kept her secret. Uryuu, frustrated and outmaneuvered, reluctantly agreed, wondering how he always ended up in these situations. Uryuu nobly refused Asahi's blackmail attempt, though he couldn't stop a nosebleed at the sight of her playful cleavage display. Just then, Yi and Yuna emerged from the room, causing Asahi to flee in embarrassment. Yuna demanded to know what Uryuu had done to her, so he came clean about the accidental sneak peek. He baptized him with salt before he revealed Asahi's plan to leave for Tokyo next year. To his surprise, the girls already knew. Later, the girls explained they didn't like meddling in each other's personal decisions. They admitted that, while Asahi was often a clumsy goof, she was also strong and determined. Uryuu asked what they would do if Asahi didn't actually want the path she had chosen. The girls decided to ask her directly. They realized how lonely it would be without her, so Uryuu suggested there was only one thing left to do. Moments later, Asahi ran through the forest, haunted by her doubts and fears of repeating her past. She insisted she just wanted to be a proper adult. Uryuu caught up to her and urged her to be honest with her sisters. Yi and Yuna soon joined them. Uryuu apologized for breaking her trust but explained it would be sad if she left without saying goodbye. The girls told Asahi they would support her no matter what she decided. Asahi tried to reassure them by saying she would meet their expectations, but the girls removed her ribbon, reminding her that the bonds their mother tied between them couldn't be loosened by distance. Moved by their words, Asahi changed her mind and declared that she wanted all three of them to stay together. The sisters hugged it out while Uryuu watched from the sidelines. Exhausted, Asahi fainted and later woke up on Uryuu's back as he carried her home. She teased him for knowing how she felt the whole time, calling him a good Samaritan, and hugged him tightly, saying she felt much better now. Later, Uryuu opened his eyes and saw the girls looking unusually mature. They told him they hadn't changed, even though they were all adults now. They reminded him of a promised day, and when he asked what that meant, they explained it was his promise to pass both the doctor and priest qualifications so he could marry them. Shocked, Uryuu suddenly woke up for real and found the girls back to their usual selves, relieved it was just a dream. Meanwhile, Maharu met with Yamiko and thanked her for her advice about where Uryuu should stay. Yamiko confirmed that Chidori's matchmaking scheme for his granddaughters worked out in the end. Maharu sighed, lamenting how the girls were too cute for Uryuu to handle. Yamiko teased her for acting like his mom. Maharu returned the favor, saying Yamiko seemed the same way, then curiously asked what her story was. 6 years earlier, Yamiko visited the Amagami Shrine to pay her respects after the girls lost their mother. She asked Chidori about the shrine's future, but he admitted he wasn't sure what to do. Suddenly, Yuna and her sisters burst out from behind the walls, begging Yamiko to make them her disciples. Taken aback, Yamiko reluctantly agreed. The girls struggled with their maiden duties, and Yamiko briefly considered running off like a cool youth pastor to escape. Instead, she settled on teaching them discipline, starting with bending them over at a perfect 90 angle to practice respectful bows. Later, they moved on to flipping leaves, but Asahi was especially bad at it. Frustrated, Yamiko jokingly scolded her for acting more like a weed dealer than a shrine maiden, which left Asahi disheartened. That night, Yamiko overheard Asahi vowing to work harder. Yuna and Yi joined in, promising to do their best to make their mother proud. Hearing their determination, Yamiko felt reassured. From that point on, the girls improved in their training, but Yamiko often wondered if they were truly happy following in their mother's footsteps. For her, their fun days together passed in a blur. After years of training, the girls tearfully said goodbye. Yamiko reminded them they were still novices and could seek her help anytime. This reassurance made them happy as they realized how much she cared for them, almost like their mother. In the present, Maharu listened with amusement as Yamiko recounted her time training the girls. At the same time, Uryuu learned from the sisters how lonely they felt when they couldn't see Yamiko as often anymore. They admitted they wished they could spend more time with her but understood how busy she was. Meanwhile, Maharu asked Yamiko what her concern was about the girls. Yamiko revealed that Chidori had tasked her with choosing a successor for the shrine. However, she didn't think any of the girls should feel pressured to take on the role and believed they should follow their own dreams instead. She then wondered if it was wrong for her to feel that way since she wasn't their family. Maharu and Uryuu both reassured Yamiko, insisting that family isn't limited to blood ties. Their words cheered her up, and the girls felt comforted as well. That night, the girls agreed to meet Yamiko on the bridge, with Uryuu tagging along. Nervously, Uryuu realized everything was playing out like his dream and planned to go straight home after saying hello. When they met, Yamiko commented on the blessings of the moonlit night and asked the girls about their dreams for the future. Uryuu noted that he seemed as lightheaded as ever, Yuna was still forcing herself, and Asahi had abandoned her dream of going to Tokyo. Nervous about their choices, he listened as the sisters each declared their desire to succeed the shrine. Realizing they all shared the same goal, the sisters began to argue. Asahi claimed she was the most qualified as head of publicity and insisted being with her sisters mattered more than her running career. He argued she was the one who made talismans and gifts, making her the best choice. Yuna refused to back down, asserting it was what she wanted most. Uryuu watched in disbelief as the sisters bickered, realizing how much they shared one brain cell. Yamiko asked if that was their final decision. The girls, confident in their choice, remembered their mother as a shrine maiden and vowed to cherish their home. In a heartfelt moment, they performed their perfect bow and humbly asked Yamiko for her guidance. Touched, Yamiko's eyes welled with tears, overwhelmed by their sincerity and the strong bond they shared as a family. At that moment, Uryuu asked if leaving the shrine to three clumsy girls was wise, outraging the sisters. He then asked Yamiko to guide them better. Yamiko agreed and told the girls their plans were trash, pointing out they had no strategy and relied on feelings. She decided it was too early to choose a successor and would retrain them instead. The girls were stunned but happy when Yamiko assured them they could visit her anytime. Yamiko then asked if they were willing to marry Uryuu to succeed the shrine. The sisters turned to Uryuu, who remembered Maharu's warning about the shrine's survival resting on him. Seeing their determination, Uryuu showed them pictures of boys from the orphanage, joking they were potential replacements for a husband. Yamiko, recalling Maharu's words about Uryuu's struggles, realized he had become a dependable ally. Uryuu promised to support the girls' dreams, and the sisters began playfully debating which boy they'd pick, marking a hopeful step forward for the shrine's future. Suddenly, Yi declared she'd marry Uryuu, shocking the others. Asahi shyly agreed, followed by Yuna, who pretended she was only doing it for the shrine's sake. Unable to reach a consensus, Asahi jokingly suggested they all marry him. Suddenly, bright lights surrounded the bridge, causing the girls to stumble onto Uryuu. He remembered the legend about the full moon making dreams come true and realized the girls were all lying on top of him. Even the sisters started to worry Asahi's suggestion might somehow come true. As the girls bickered, Yamiko left, amused by the chaos and eager to see what paths they'd choose. A few days later, Uryuu nervously prepared breakfast for the girls. When they arrived in their school uniforms, they lamented how spring break was already over. As they ate, Yuna noticed Uryuu hadn't touched his food and teased him. Asahi asked which school he was transferring to, but Uryuu couldn't remember the name. Yuna reassured him it couldn't be hers, as her school had been girls only. Uryuu sighed in relief, thinking this wasn't some cliché harem anime, until Yi reminded Yuna that her school was now co-ed. Later, Uryuu and Yuna discovered just how cliché this anime was when Uryuu was introduced as the only boy in class. During break, several girls gathered around him, bombarding him with questions. Overwhelmed, he noticed Yuna glaring daggers at him. When they met outside, Yuna told him he could flirt with as many girls as he liked, as long as he didn't mention they lived together. Confused, Uryuu asked why, but Yuna insisted she didn't want weird rumors spreading. Back in class, Uryuu tried to focus on his studies and realized how academically rigorous the school was. However, his concentration wavered as he felt all the girls staring at him like a rare artifact. During the next break, a girl named Mitsuko approached with Yuna and introduced herself as the class rep. She asked how he was adjusting as the only boy, while Yuna abruptly excused herself. Mitsuko found this odd, noting that Yuna usually helped newcomers. When Uryuu asked if they were close, Mitsuko said they were best friends and teased him for already having a crush on Yuna. Mitsuko began wingmanning hard, listing Yuna's positive qualities, conveniently glossing over her occasional airheaded moments. She also mentioned how popular Yuna had become after the Amagami festival, which made Uryuu realize Yuna was likely on her best behavior at school compared to her antics at home. Mitsuko teased him further but warned that anyone who wanted Yuna's heart would have to get past her first. Fed up, Uryuu excused himself to the bathroom. When he returned for gym period, he accidentally walked in on the girls changing in the classroom. Though he had already seen Yuna's features, Uryuu panicked, closed the door, and worried the entire class would hate him for peeking. Luckily, Mitsuko and Yuna reassured him it was fine, as none of the girls seemed to care. Yuna, however, fought the urge to assault him on the spot. Uryuu could already tell his school life would be chaotic. The next morning, Uryuu packed lunches with the girls and nervously greeted them as they came down. Yuna continued glaring at him, making him uneasy. When the others asked what was wrong, Yuna dismissed it as nothing. Suddenly, they noticed the boxed lunches Uryuu had prepared for them. Even Yuna's cold exterior melted at the sight of the food. Uryuu, confused, asked why it was such a big deal. The girls explained they hadn't had proper homemade lunches in ages, having survived on store-bought food. Asahi mentioned their mom used to make bento lunches for them, so Uryuu offered to keep making them daily. Later, at school, Uryuu walked into a sea of skirts as the only boy. Mitsuko called out to him, asking how he was adjusting to school life, while Yuna glared daggers, silently warning him to stay quiet. Mitsuko noticed the tension and casually mentioned that Yuna hadn't bought dumplings from her parents' store like usual. When she asked if Uryuu knew anything, he feigned ignorance and brushed her off. During lunchtime, Yuna revealed her masterfully prepared bento, making all the girls drool. Mitsuko suddenly pointed out it was identical to Uryuu's lunch, causing Yuna to freeze in panic. Struggling to come up with an explanation, Uryuu quickly stuffed his entire lunch into his mouth, preventing any comparison. Yuna sighed in relief, though Mitsuko remained suspicious. That night, as Uryuu washed the lunch boxes, Yuna approached him. He apologized and suggested canceling the lunches to avoid further trouble, but Yuna thanked him instead and asked him to keep making them with a few tweaks. Uryuu agreed, and soon Asahi and Ii appeared, each requesting their own modifications. The next day, Uryuu returned from school relieved the lunch issue had been resolved. On the way home, he spotted the girls hanging out together, surprised since they went to different schools. Remembering Yuna's warning to avoid them near school, he decided not to approach. Suddenly, Shirahi appeared, teasing him about his new uniform and how cute he looked. When she asked how he was adjusting to his new home, Uryuu explained he'd started at a new school. Shirahi teased him further, saying he'd changed a lot since leaving the orphanage, but Uryuu joked that she hadn't changed at all, especially in terms of flatness. As they talked, Shirahi teased him about living with 3 shrine maidens. Uryuu, as usual, ranted about how annoying the girls were. Surprised, Shirahi tried to suggest a study date when they noticed a crowd gathering around Yuna, Yi, and Asahi trying to take pictures of them. Seeing how uncomfortable the girls were, Uryuu remembered Yuna's warning but decided he couldn't ignore the situation. Apologizing to Shirahi, he pushed through the crowd, grabbed the girls by the hand, and led them across the street. The crowd watched in confusion, wondering who he was, while Shirahi looked heartbroken as Uryuu ran off with the girls. Once safe, the girls thanked him for saving them despite Yuna's earlier warning. Uryuu, panting from the escape, silently wondered how much more chaotic his life could get. That's it for today's video guys. Watch the following video and I will see you in the next one.